Well, mic'd up this evening as the NBA really ramps up its return in Orlando. The Pelicans arrived in Orlando today. Alvin Gentry jokingly said he made the cut as the league allows Alvin Gentry to travel with the team. To talk Pelicans, we bring in ESPN 1420's Scott Prather. Scott, I always appreciate you coming on. I always love your insight on the Pellies. Gentry is with the team. How important is that for this team's success?
It matters. He got cleared about 30 minutes before they got on the plane to Orlando. So kind of like you said, he just made the cut. But you're already missing an assistant who can't go into the bubble for health reasons. If you also lose your head coach, now you're just, you're losing half your staff essentially. So I think, I think the guys like Alvin, obviously, he is the head coach, and maybe the role of head coach in the NBA is a little more overstated than in other leagues. I think talent is going to take you so far, and I think there may be a few elite coaches and a lot of coaches that are going to go as far as their talent takes them, and Alvin's probably in that group. But no question, it's a big deal, and if he couldn't have gone or if he has to leave, they're undoubtedly going to miss him.
So much has been said about the league trying to work out a schedule that allows the Pelicans to make the postseason. And my dog, I think, trying to make a cameo in our appearance. The Pelicans trying to make the postseason, and they're 3.5 games back with just 8 games to play. What is a realistic expectation for this team?
Well, I think that they could get, if they're the 9 seed after these 8 games, if they're in 9th place in the West and they're within 3.5 games, or the team 3.5 or closer of the 8th seed, if they're 3.5 but another team's closer to the 8th seed and they're not the 9, it won't matter. But I think they could get into that situation where they're the 9, and then you got to beat a team twice, likely Memphis, to get into the postseason. The NBA really wants the Pelicans in the postseason. Their first nationally televised game coming out of quarantine is the Pelicans against the Jazz, and it's not because Rudy Gobert, had to apologize when the COVID outbreak happened back in March. It's because of Zion Williamson. And if you have Zion in the postseason and the storyline of you're playing the Lakers, Anthony Davis, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, all of that, the NBA would absolutely love it. The Pelicans wouldn't win a series against the Lakers, but that's what the NBA hopes. And I think the odds, I don't know that I'd put them likely, Andrew, but I would say 50-50. I think they got a decent shot to do it.
What do you think is the one storyline that we're not hearing about the NBA that maybe we should be paying more attention to?
That's a good question. I think that, the COVID aspect of it in terms of some players not going and other players maybe testing positive, that's going to be a storyline the whole time. But I think the storyline maybe you're not hearing about as much is some of the other teams in the West that aren't the Lakers or the Clippers that have, I think, a legit chance to perhaps make some noise. The Denver Nuggets are a team that, you got a really, really good front court there. They're 3rd place right now in the West. I think the 4th seed like Utah. And, break the dogs out on it for sure. So what you got? You got a cat running through there? What's happening, Andrew?
No, it's funny you said, speaking of making noise, I think my wife just got home. She had a meeting, and I think she just got home. So the dogs are at the garage door barking. And I'm trying just to power through. But, this is working in the media in 2020. If it's your dogs, if it's not your dogs interrupting you, it's your kids interrupting you. And I think I'm just going to let them go and see what we can do in post-production and see if we can make this at least sound better. I'm not going to edit any of this out. I'm just going to see if I can make it sound better. So I do apologize to you and anyone listening to this interview because, someone let the dogs out, and I guess it technically was me, but they're excited or interested in something. Or maybe we got mail. I don't really know. I don't know what they're barking about.
I think they were agreeing with me. They feel like, teams like Denver and Utah and
they are
maybe
agreeing
the
with you.
Heat, just not getting enough consideration for what happens in terms of on the court. In answer to your question, Andrew, I think in terms of what's the most overlooked NBA storyline right now, and I think it is the games, right? Like in terms of who wins, who gets the top seeds. There's still some jockeying for position with 8 games left. That's kind of an afterthought right now for a lot of people because the main subject line or the main talking point constantly comes back to the coronavirus and can they pull it off? That really is the focus. And in terms of the play on the court, that's kind of the secondary discussion right now. And the most overlooked story about the NBA returning is the play on the court, ironically.
One of the things I've noticed about the NBA quarantine is while the rest of us got chubbier, NBA players seem to lose a lot of weight during the quarantine. I mean, you saw those pictures of Zion. He looked. You and I have had this conversation, I think, on your show. I don't like the Zion weight conversation, but he sure looked good, didn't he?
Yeah, there were some players that said they got really good at Halo and they got really good at pickleball. Zion just got really good at adding muscle mass. I mean, he looked like a superhero with a mask or a villain or something. The way he that I mean, I don't know if it was the angle or what, but the Pelicans put that on their social media feed for a reason. No, he looks absolutely jacked, and I think, part of that, Andrew, is when he started last year in Summer League and then had the injury and then had to fight through it and then finally made his debut in January, go back to Summer League. Well, he looks chubbier. He looks overweight. When you're Zion Williamson and you're the number 1 overall pick, you're constantly pulled in 100 directions. There are media obligations. There are business obligations. So how is your diet? How is your workout regimen? All of those things. Whenever you're rehabbing consistently, to your knee and a certain aspect of your body, you're not in basketball shape. You're not able to shape your body the same way you will whenever you're just healthy, in shape, working out, and not getting pulled in 100 different directions for business and media obligations. So Zion really, he was allowed to continue to use the Pelicans facility even after, even during the early parts of the quarantine and the lockdown because he was rehabbing from an injury. So I remember David Griffin at Media Day telling a story about how when they put in, he might have been exaggerating a little bit, but he said when they put Zion on a weight training regimen that he put on 10 pounds of muscle in a week. Now that sounds extreme and ridiculous, but Griffin's point was, look, there's nothing like him. There's nobody we've seen like him. He's a freak. Is just genetically, a lot of things don't make sense. So if Griffin's exaggerating a little, I think, if you just cut it in half and said he added 5 pounds, or if he added 6 or 7 in a week, it tells you that if he's healthy and he's got time to work out, he can be really strong. And those pictures, man, I mean, I don't want to take a charge from that dude.
No, the dude looks great. He's not the only one in the NBA that looks great after this quarantine. I know one of the things, there are teams who need to make adjustments for this run. How easy is it for a team? I think in one corner it's like, look, you're going to have a couple weeks to really implement any new changes you want to make. In the other corner, it's like, no, you need those 3 weeks just to get back up to speed where you were. Are teams going to be able to make changes, make adjustments, and really do anything that can change where they were from, early March?
I think so. I think teams that are getting players back, teams that are have players rested and healthy, but how rested and healthy are they going to be when you start playing games, assuming you do at the end of this month? Right now, guys have been rested. Guys that are traveling to the bubble, for the most part, are healthy right now. And so guys that maybe had a nagging injury or look like they probably wouldn't play this season at all, suddenly are going to be available and well rested. But you could say that about all 22 teams for the most part. If everybody's got the majority of their roster when the games tip off on the 30th, I think the previous 3 weeks and the scrimmages, that's really just getting into basketball shape. I mean, that's what that is. I don't know how much new game plan you're implementing or anything like that. I don't think that's going to be the focus of many of these teams. I think their focus is let's stay healthy. Let's get back in basketball shape. And at the beginning of every NBA season, the games are a little rusty. The teams that have a lot of new faces, a lot of new players, it takes them a while. The teams with continuity, they're good. I think the Toronto Raptors, who are second in the East and are the defending champions, granted they don't have Kawhi Leonard anymore, but they've got a lot of continuity on that team. They've got, strong coaching staff, and they traveled down to Florida last week. So they got there before everybody else. So I think teams like that have some continuity, that have a lot of the same players and staff for a number of years, can probably have a lot more success out the gate rather than some of the newer teams. Look, there's a lot of hope and excitement around the Pelicans because of how they looked right before the shutdown happened and how they were playing. And Zion at only 19 games and how exciting he looked. But they're still going to have growing pains. I mean, this is still a team. This is still a core on a team that has not played a ton of games together. And while the future is exciting, to think that they're just going to pick up just like that where they left off, it's gonna be a tough road to hope for them. But if they can get to that 9th spot and then maybe have a 2-game play-in against Memphis, then they have a shot at the postseason. Something that I know they're gunning for.
From a play perspective, who's the one Pelican you're watching closest?
Well, I mean, aside from Zion Williamson, I think it's Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball really played strong down the stretch. He dealt with some injuries early in the season. He was kind of getting adjusted to a new environment, a new system. But his chemistry with Zion over those 19 games, his improved three-point shot, and really just his on-ball defense, all of those things from early in the season to what he was doing in February and March. I mean, Lonzo Ball looked like a totally different player. So I'm anxious to see him, and probably, Ingram's good. He could score, obviously. We all know Drew Holiday, J.J. Redick, Josh Hart, great hustle off the bench. But for me, it's Lonzo Ball. I'm most interested. I'll be watching him really closely. And, the Pelicans have some decisions to make. I think this offseason, obviously, Brandon Ingram gets a contract extension, or not an extension, rather. He'll be a restricted free agent, but I think he gets a new deal. But Lonzo Ball, they could extend him perhaps a year early, and maybe these 8 or potentially more games, they get a chance to evaluate it and see if that's a possibility.
Well, Scott, I appreciate you coming on. I apologize. The dogs decided to try to yell you down throughout this conversation.
Who let the dogs out, Andrew, right?
Who? Well, Scott, he's ESPN 1420, Scott Prather. Scott, as always, as I said, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll look forward to see what the Pels do.
My pleasure, Andrew. Thanks so much.